The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJX, its board, staff, or underwriters.
On this episode of Comes with the Territory, as the presidential race intensifies, both major parties have held their conventions, setting the stage for a historic election. Representatives from the local Democratic and Republican parties are here to discuss what happened at both national conventions and how it all relates to the territory. Plus, a recap of newsworthy issues on the local political scene heading into the general election, including growing concerns about political disengagement, a senator facing commercial eviction in the midst of a re-election campaign, a former senator's write-in campaign following a loss in the Democratic primary, and a vocal critic being denied entry to an elected official's town hall meeting. Stay tuned as this week's panel joins the conversation to analyze these political issues and more. Comes with the Territory starts now. Welcome to Comes with the Territory. I'm Janette Millin Young, sitting in for Leslie Commission. Last month, the Democratic National Convention wrapped up in Chicago, where Vice President Kamala Harris made history as the first woman of color to accept the presidential nomination of a major party. And in July, in Milwaukee, former President Donald Trump formally accepted the Republican nomination. Here's more on both conventions. The Democratic National Convention turned the traditional roll call into a high-energy celebration, with crowds on their feet as music blared throughout Chicago's United Center, corresponding to each state and territory announcing votes.
The U.S. Virgin Islands, how do you cast your vote?
Mr. Secretary, we are proud to call the Virgin Islands of the United States our home.
Delegate to Congress Stacey Plaskett and Governor Albert Bryan Jr. joined a contingent of local Democrats to announce
all 13 votes to Kamala Harris!
The musical roll call was just one of many highlights of the four-day convention that featured a stream of celebrities and powerful speeches from party heavyweights like former President Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, and Hillary Clinton before the last day's sweeping acceptance speech by the vice president.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Harris's 40-minute acceptance speech centered on her personal story, her commitment to fighting for the middle class, and her vision for a more united America.
Let us write the next great chapter in the most extraordinary story ever told.
Thank my lucky stars.
Days after surviving an assassination attempt, former President Donald Trump took center stage at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee in July.
We want to remind all our delegates, our alternates, and guests that maintaining order during the roll call is extremely important.
The Republican convention featured a more subdued and straightforward roll call, which included the delegation from the Virgin Islands,
the land of welcoming people, beautiful beaches, tremendous culture, and the best rum in the world, proudly casts its four delegates for President Donald J. Trump.
Donald Trump has my strong endorsement, period.
The RNC featured notable speakers such as Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, and Ron DeSantis, leading into the last day's acceptance speech from Trump.
I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of Almighty God.
In his 90-minute acceptance speech, Donald Trump recounted his survival of the assassination attempt.
They thought it was over. I raised my right arm, looked at the thousands and thousands of people that were breathlessly waiting, and started shouting, "Fight, fight, fight."
Trump emphasized how the experience strengthened his resolve to lead a divided nation.
America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, brighter, happier, stronger, freer, greater, and more united than ever before.
Joining the show to discuss how this all relates to the territory are representatives from the local Republican and Democratic parties. On set with me is Ronald Picard, a member of the Republican Party in the Virgin Islands. Welcome to the show, Mr. Picard.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And joining the discussion from our St. Croix studio is Democratic State Chair Stedman Hodge Jr. It's great to have you with us, Mr. Hodge.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great. Let's start with you, Mr. Picard. We just saw the video from both conventions, and so I wanted to know more or less, how did it feel to be in the room?
Well, it was electrifying, to say the least. I mean, the energy was so strong, it was so magnetic, everything was positive. The atmosphere itself, the people, everybody was on one tune, one level of excitement, due to the fact that we're that close and actually bringing an economy back.
I want to have the same question for you, Mr. Hodge. Basically, we saw the video, and many of us actually watched the conventions. One was very subdued, and then the other one was party-like. How did it feel to be in the room?
I think it was really exciting. The energy was through the roof, not just only to get speakers, but also the activities that were happening at the convention center, the various caucuses. It was the highlight of everything, where we actually nominated the most qualified candidate and the ticket from top to bottom.
So you spoke about a highlight. So what would you say was the actual highlight of that convention?
I think it's based on the experience of the individuals, but one of the big takeaways for me was the emotional period when President Joe Biden came out and he spoke. It was passionate. He spoke about what he has been doing and his administration has been doing for Democrats, and whether you voted for him or not, it's about everyone that's a citizen of the United States and its territories.
So everybody's going to say there was a party, but anything policy related, anything you could bring home and say, if this president is elected, what policies will be instituted that could benefit us?
Of course, but I'd like to just go right back right quickly. You said that one part was subdued versus the other,
yes.
Referring to the RNC?
Yes.
Well, the RNC, I mean, I was there, so it wasn't subdued. It was energetic, mostly party-like, but it was more seriously-like.
Okay.
But it wasn't no sad moment. It was very energetic. You spoke about policies. So what we're looking at, policies that can perhaps benefit the people of the Virgin Islands. It's all about the Virgin Islands, right? So the party was talking about how they're trying to emphasize on securing the border. Securing the border, that was one major part that brought up a lot, as well as bringing more manufacturing companies in the United States to manufacture goods in the United States. As you can realize what's going to happen if we knock out China and everything is made in the USA, one, we'll get products shipped to the Virgin Islands faster. We get products for a much cheaper price. So we need more manufacturing companies in the United States, and that's one thing that especially.
So you spoke about the borders.
Right.
And business and economy. So the territory impact, besides saving money, because you said things will get here faster, we have open waters.
Right.
So how do you think, were you able to talk to anybody, policies about our open waters, since they're talking so much about borders?
Right. When you say open waters, you're referring to as it pertains to shipping?
No, as it pertains to, you said protecting our borders.
Oh, the borders. You're referring to the security
Yes.
of the nation.
Yes.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm referring to, as you can see right now in the Biden-Kamala administration, over 16.5 million immigrants have entered the United States. There's no security at our border. You can see what happened and what's going on right now as it pertains to the immigrants in the United States. In fact, furthermore, there are immigrants that are being given voter ID cards and they're allowed to vote for president of the United States versus we're citizens of the United States and we don't have the right to vote for president of the United States. However, these immigrants
Unless
do.
we are on the mainland.
Well, yes, obvious.
That's
yeah.
correct.
Unless we relocate to the mainland, of course, then we can vote for president of the United States. But here we are in the Virgin Islands.
Yes.
We are citizens, but we cannot vote for the president of the United States. However, the immigrants coming over, they have the right to vote.
So, Mr. Hodge, same question for you about the territory impact with the policies that were maybe discussed during meetings, because I'm sure you talked to policymakers while you were there as well.
Well, in the end, when we talk about economics, immigration, abortion rights, etc., but as relates to immigration, I can use myself as an example. 3 of my grandparents were not born in the U.S. Virgin Islands. They were born in the British Virgin Islands. And the territory occupies Hispanics or individuals from other Caribbean islands, whether it's Antigua, St. Kitts, Dominica, and it's a cultural mix. We have to be receptive to anyone who's coming to the #1 nation in the world, where you have the most freedoms, the most rights, privileges, to participate in our
So, Mr. Hodge, in terms of the actual
and that
impact.
is what's being offered.
Okay. So I want to talk about something that's really something that everybody's talking about locally, and that is the voter engagement. Like you said, you were excited to be at the RNC, the DNC was energetic, but locally, where is that spirit?
Well, the spirit is here because, there's an anticipation of who's going to win as it pertains to the president. First of all, we have to realize something. Regardless who wins, whether it's President Trump or President Kamala Harris, we have to work with that president.
Yes.
That's something we have to realize. But we have to work with a new president as it pertains to it being beneficial for the people of the Virgin Islands.
So do you believe that local Republicans are really excited about the presidential election, but what about the local election? You don't have anybody running in the senatorial race, but
yeah, there are local there are candidates running for. You're referring to the local election taking place right now. There are Republican candidates running right now for their different offices here in the Virgin Islands, and it's very energetic. They're looking forward to it. We have a lot more Republicans running now than we've had for a long time, and it's very good because mostly you have to get the people out to vote.
And that's my point. And I wanted to talk to Mr. Hodge as well, because obviously, the Democratic Party being so large here, Mr. Hodge, that the numbers were very low during the primaries, people coming out to vote. So what about the local voter engagement that the party is involved in?
Yeah, the local, we've been driving that narrative for a long time, even if whether it's our governor and what we are doing as it relates to federal funds we receive in the territory, what we're doing when it comes to HUD offering certain affordable housing programs, also to include what's going to be forthcoming, whereby the Biden-Harris administration in 2025 budget is providing millions of dollars, and Kamala Harris, our presidential nominee, is adding an additional $40 billion to benefit not just the United States, but also its territories. But it's about getting the message out and what we do, and allowing our citizens to truly understand what's happening on the national level. And it's happening with our senators, it's happening with our Democratic Party clubs. You may not hear a lot of it maybe through radio, because of course that does come with a cost, but we are driving that narrative.
So cost is a big issue here for engaging your local voters. So we just quickly, I'd like to wrap up our conversation and talk about debate expectations. We have a presidential debate coming up. Mm-hmm. What are you expecting to hear from Mr. Trump, and what are you expecting, Mr. Hodge, to hear from Ms. Harris, the debate that will relate to us as Virgin Islanders, quickly in a few seconds?
Of course, what I'm expecting to hear is conversation as pertains to the benefit of people of Virgin Islands. I'm expecting to hear, if possible, he can address some of the insular cases that we have been under restriction for over 123 years. And that's the reason why I indicated the fact that the immigrants are allowed to vote for presidency of the United States. That's one of the insular cases, and that's something that could have been covered right now. as it pertains to taking advantage of it, as it pertains to opportunity.
So, Mr. Hodge, we just have a few moments left. I would like to hear your impressions, actually what you expect from the presidential debate as it relates to us as Virgin Islanders.
I'm expecting that the debate is going to be productive. Definitely, hopefully, consideration is going to be made for the territories relative to policies that can be driven, especially from our nominee, Kamala Harris.
Well, thank you so much to both of you. You had a lot of answers to my questions. You really were excited about it, and I wish you both well. Thank you so much for being here. Up next, we'll hear from this week's panel, but first, a local political recap.
Today was a very quiet day. Not what our election officials are accustomed to.
On primary election night after the results were tallied, St. Thomas election officials acknowledged a low voter turnout earlier that day. Certified results later released showed that out of 20,350 Democrats registered in the territory, less than 3,000 of them cast ballots in the Democratic primary, whether through early voting, absentee ballots, or on Election Day. This amounts to a participation rate of just 12.75%. On the primary election day itself, 1,158 voters turned out on St. Croix, 440 on St. Thomas, and just 23 on St. John, according to the precinct results. This low participation comes amid recent changes to the ballot brought about by a lawsuit. Earlier this year, a judge declared several election laws in the Virgin Islands Code unconstitutional, leading the Board of Elections to remove the candidates for territorial party positions from the 2024 ballots. Additionally, on St. Thomas, only 7 Democrats ran for the 7 available Senate seats, so that race was also removed from the primary ballot. As a result, the primary ballots for the St. Thomas-St. John district featured just the Board of Elections and the Board of Education races, which may have contributed to the lower voter engagement. Looking ahead to the upcoming general election, the St. Thomas-St. John district has only 4 candidates running for the 7 available seats in the 6th Constitution Convention. This low number of candidates raises questions about what's contributing to the limited interest in running for office. One factor could be the long-standing requirement for government workers to take a leave of absence if they wish to run, which may deter those who depend on government jobs for their livelihood.
Only the wealthy should run. I am speechless.
St. Croix Senator Maurice James made her second attempt this summer to advance legislation allowing government employees to run for political office while still employed. But once again, she faced pushback from her colleagues.
Policemen are not allowed to put political campaign stickers on their car. And now with this piece of legislation, you're telling the policeman he could stay on his job and run for office. How would this work?
I'm not a proposer of the bill. I am just telling you that in the States, people run, police and everybody else run for office, and they don't have to take leave from their job.
I am just saying that absent Ethics and Conflict of Interest Commission, we are opening Pandora's box.
James pointed out that the senators themselves were working their government jobs while seeking re-election.
I am working and I'm campaigning for re-election. So to hear that you can't work and campaign at the same time is hypocritical to the rest of the government employees who want to serve and run for office.
The bill ultimately stalled when James did not receive a second on the motion to advance it out of the Rules Committee.
Come on, guys! Woo! Come support your candidates!
Former St. Croix Senator Nellie O'Reilly hit the streets on primary election day last month, urging residents to get out and vote to ensure their voices were heard. O'Reilly, who served 5 terms in the Senate until 2018, is seeking to return to the lawmaking body. But she was unsuccessful in the Democratic primary, finishing in 8th place behind incumbent Senator Maurice James, according to the certified election results. O'Reilly later said she had no illusions about winning the primary, alleging that Democratic Party members worked to keep her out of the top 7.
I had received a message from one of the heads of the party, essentially saying that that I had abandoned the party because I had supported or endorsed a Democrat.
For the first time in decades, we have a governor who does not succumb to the demands of special interest groups. I encourage you to vote to re-elect Governor Mapp.
In 2018, O'Reilly endorsed Governor Kenneth Mapp for re-election instead of Democratic challenger Albert Bryan Jr. In a social media post after her primary loss, O'Reilly said she received a message ahead of the election, which stated in part, "I believe that it is politically advisable that you publicly give an apology and explanation for returning to the party and running under its banner after you crossed over and publicly endorsed Governor Mapp, an independent candidate for his re-election, against our Democratic candidate for governor." In response to comments made on her post, O'Reilly made it clear that she was not apologizing, stating, "I am an independent thinker. I will do for St. Croix what I must, and the Democratic Party will not get in the way of progress for St. Croix. You just messed with the wrong person." She subsequently launched her write-in campaign.
We are in the race as a write-in candidate. We do not have a number and we're not on the ballot. But you are still able to elect us because you just need to write our name where it says write-in.
Another candidate in the race, St. Croix Senator Samuel Carrion, is facing challenges of his own. Carrion, who is running for re-election as an independent, is facing eviction from a cafe and bar he's been leasing on King Street in Frederiksted for nearly 3 years. The eviction comes after Carrion allegedly accumulated around $26,000 in unpaid rent and utility bills dating back to August 2023, according to a civil complaint filed by his landlord, Strand Square LLC. The cafe and bar, known as Tabway, was listed for sale by Carrion in a Facebook group in July, though no price was specified. The landlord is asking the court to order Carrion and any other occupants to vacate the premises immediately and is also seeking a judgment for the outstanding amount. Court documents show that Carrion signed a 3-year lease in October 2021 with an option to renew. The monthly rent, including fees, was approximately $2,000, but the landlord claims Carrion has fallen behind on payments, including nearly $9,200 in electricity charges. A 7-day demand for payment was served to Carrion on August 12th, warning of legal action if the balance wasn't paid. A hearing is scheduled for September 16th in the Superior Court on St. Croix.
I think you could stop me, you can't stop me, Stacy. You only made it worse for yourself.
Karen Dickinson recently took to the streets of Frederiksted using a microphone and loudspeaker to protest Delegate to Congress Stacey Plaskett after she was barred from entering a town hall meeting on August 28th.
The Congresswoman indicated that she doesn't want you to be here today because she wants it to be a smooth meeting.
In a video taken before Dickinson's sidewalk protest, a Plaskett aide accompanied by 2 police officers is seen explaining to Dickinson that she would not be allowed into the town hall. Dickinson responded to the snub by protesting outside the meeting for its entire duration.
Locking me out of a public meeting and bringing police. You're going on like we there in Baghdad. I was going in there just to listen, but you assume because you know I will pose a challenge. You know I gonna call you out. Go home, Stacy. And people, let me tell you, they got a door and a lock and key.
A news report by The Source said that Plaskett addressed the situation during the town hall, stating, "I am not going to tolerate disruptions. I have the ability to exclude individuals or those who I think will not create a safe environment, and also have made threats."
Ida Smith will now appear on the ballot as a candidate for delegate to Congress after a dispute that stretched over multiple Board of Elections meetings. Initially, election supervisor Carolyn Fox disqualified Smith, claiming she was registered to vote in both New York and the Virgin Islands. Smith disagreed, arguing that only the U.S. Constitution sets the qualifications for running for Congress. After some delays, Attorney General nominee Gordon Rhea weighed in, determining that Smith is eligible to run. The board then voted during a contentious meeting on September 4th to place Smith on the ballot. Going against Fox's decision, Fox stood firm, stating her job is to ensure candidates follow the rules. Meanwhile, Smith claims the disqualifications has damaged her campaign and hurt her reputation.
With the 9 weeks that we have until November 5th, how do I fix the disqualification that was tainted with my name? How do I do that? Does Miss Fox want to make me whole in some way? She's insistent on going to court, so maybe we should go to court and let the judge make me whole for all that she delayed, denied, and deprived me of.
Joining me now to break it all down is popular radio host Sheldon Turnbull of 107.9 FM, The Vibe. In our St. Croix studio, we have community organizer Dennis Lynch, and virtually we're joined by Janika Simon, editor of the Virgin Islands Consortium. Thank you all for being here. Before we dive into the local political news of the day, let's quickly touch on what was covered in the first half of the show. So Sheldon, what do you see as the key takeaways from both national conventions?
It was interesting to hear the responses from both members, as there was a lot of energy as it appeared with the DNC, and it was subdued by the RNC. And it's just going to be interesting moving forward who can keep that momentum, that energy, and again with the first Black woman at that to be nominated by a major party. It's going to be interesting to see how the American people who can vote will look at that.
Very good. And Mr. Lynch, what were your thoughts?
It's groundbreaking. Piggybacking off of what Mr. Turnbull just said, this is the first time that we have an African-American female coming to the forefront and throwing her hat in the ring as a presidency candidate. So it's a very big moment for the DNC. It almost reflects as when Barack Obama did it back in 2008, if my memory serves me correctly. So it's just to keep that momentum flowing. Keep them narrative out there will be very instrumental in terms of what the Democratic Party can do. And that will be very important for us moving forward.
Well, thank you for that. Ms. Simon, what were your thoughts? Were you keeping up with what was going on at the national conventions, both of them? What you thought?
Yeah, I mean, I, of course, have to watch and pay attention. I am a little bit hesitant to comment on political issues, especially because I'm not a citizen. So when it comes to presidential politics, I try to stay quiet. But what I found really interesting in terms of the race thus far is the fact that it is still so tight, despite all of the monumental events that we have had in this cycle. We have the Republican candidate with 34 felony convictions. We have a demographically groundbreaking Democratic candidate, and yet still the populace seems to be very, 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 evenly divided about who to support.
Interesting perspective. I'd like to move on to talk about the low voter turnout in the primary. Everybody's talking about it. Nobody was talking about the primary, and all of a sudden everybody's talking about the low voter turnout. What do you think about that?
I think it was expected. At least I expected it. You didn't have anybody in the St. Thomas St. John district. There was not a senatorial race. And if you look at the candidates in whole, there's not much new individuals out there. You had on St. Croix a lot of individuals who had run in the past. Yeah. You have individuals who have lost in the past who gave up their seats who are coming back. So it didn't appear to have that same type of energy and excitement because the base from which you had to choose was not that big. And of course, usually when it's not a gubernatorial election, the turnout is usually lower than it is otherwise.
So, Mr. Lynch, what do you think about the fact that, as Mr. Turnbull just mentioned, So there wasn't any senatorial race here on St. Thomas. That's fine, but what about the importance of the Board of Election, the Board of Education? You know, there's a lot of banter about what's going on with our education system, yet we didn't hear any talk about that.
I think we fail to connect with society as a whole in outreach programs in the community. You know, you elicited a perfect question, the Board of Education. That is a very, very hot button topic as we speak right now. Education is the process in which all of us are here right now. We had to go through that school system to be oriented on the do's and the don'ts. That's something that we don't take seriously right now in the territory. And for us to have that low voter turnout, whether it's a gubernatorial race or a senatorial race, it shows that the lackluster effect and the seriousness of our community combined in terms of moving us forward in the appropriate direction. So that's definitely something that we need to address on a bigger scale, not only as an electoral campaign.
Yes, I appreciate that. So, Ms. Simon, in St. Thomas, there are few candidates for the Constitutional Convention, and there's quite a low interest in the Senate race. And do you have any ideas as to why that is?
I think that, as was mentioned earlier by your other guests, you have, first of all, a situation where there are not that many new candidates coming in. But what I think I have been hearing from my readers a lot is that people feel frustrated, they feel disconnected, and they do not believe that the people with their hands on the reins of power have an understanding and an idea of what the general population needs. And so I think that being disaffected in and of itself really robs your faith and confidence in the system at large, and it makes people start to believe that nothing they do or can do will change their circumstances. So you find people, whenever I write something about an issue in the legislature that is being raised, or something going on with political parties, you have people commenting the usual. They're all the same. It doesn't matter. We vote in these guys and nothing changes, and we vote in the next set and nothing changes. So I think that the general feeling of disaffection in the population is definitely affecting voter turnout and voter interest.
Mr. Turnbull, would you say that the candidates are just not reaching out? Wouldn't that be part of it?
I think it's a little bit of each. I think a good part of it is that, you know, when you look at those who are seeking office, there's nothing necessarily new. There's an issue wherein those who you may think may be the best for the office decide that they're not going to take the time off from work, whether it's a private industry or government office, which you have to take basically 6 months. Not everyone can afford that time off or willing to risk it to have that opportunity to run. I think that's something that really puts a axe in those who are seeking office and in those who look to vote for individuals.
But do you believe that if you want to run for office at some point, you actually save because that's one of your goals, and so you're saving money? Would that be something to think about?
I think it's a major sacrifice. You have to have that support not only from your family, but sometimes from just general supporters who are willing to invest in you to get you through the primary, if you're in a primary, and get you to the general election. It's not a cheap endeavor if you're going to not be getting paid.
Right.
So it's something where you have to look at, and one of the things I've always said, and I saw that Senator James out of St. Croix had put something forward to that manner to say, why do we have it as such that individuals who are seeking office have to leave their job for 6 months, basically to have the opportunity to serve?
Because the senators themselves are campaigning.
Right.
That's good point. So I'd like to move on to another topic, and that is Nellie O'Reilly's primary loss, and now she's talking about a write-in campaign. So let's take it to St. Croix, to Mr. Lynch. Nellie O'Reilly lost in the Democratic primary, and now she's doing a write-in campaign. Do you see this as an effective strategy to get back into office, to instead of waiting for another turn to just try to get a write-in campaign going?
Historically speaking, I have not known a candidate to be successful in a write-in candidacy campaign. It's very interesting the back data she provided in terms of having messages sent to her from the head of the Democratic Party stating different insinuations in terms of what they feel or what they think. However, the one thing that I would say as a political candidate for anyone running, your first and your only concern should be the people of the territory. Whether you have allegiance to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, you serve the people of the Virgin Islands. So whether you agree with a gubernatorial candidate who's a Democrat or a gubernatorial candidate who's an independent, you are a free thinker and an independent thinker. And she did what she felt was appropriate. But if we're speaking in terms of a write-in candidacy, I guess I'm in support of whatever she chooses is fit from her advisors and those around her who feels that they have a chance in a write-in candidacy.
So, Mr. Turnbull, back to you. The 2018 endorsement of Governor Mapp, do you think that hurt her in the Democratic primary?
I don't necessarily believe it hurt her in any major way. We have a short memory. One of the big supporters, maybe not directly by doing an endorsement, was one of the big runners, the first place runner in that primary. There's several individuals who we've seen throughout the Senate that had support, who are Democrats, who had obvious support for Governor Mapp at the time. So I don't think it's a key factor. I think maybe her time has passed. I think sometimes people look at it like, you stepped away from it, give somebody else a chance. But if she decides to do a write-in campaign, more power to her. It's a difficult task. You have to have the name spelled exactly correct and lots of other things like that. But I don't believe that endorsement really affected her at this point, this time around.
Ms. Simon, following this conversation, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, I think that, seeing a write-in candidate is really admirable. As everybody has said, it's not an easy road trying to go it alone without the support of a party apparatus behind you. Whether the Mapp endorsement hurt her in the primary, I think I would tend to agree with Mr. Turnbull in that, memories are not that long, and I feel like maybe other factors may have played a bigger role. For example, other incumbents, just having the advantage of already being in office, etc. But it will be interesting to see how she manages to run the campaign, how she manages to canvass support, and how many, ballots with her name on it actually come in on election night.
Very good points. I'd like to move on to another topic, and I think it's rather strange. Senator Carrion is facing business eviction, and we hold our elected officials to a high standard. Do you think that this is something that will affect him in the election?
I don't think it's going to necessarily affect him. He has a strong base. The Hispanic base on St. Croix seems to be supporting him. He was as I used to say, a Mappian, a big Map person, and Map still has a lot of support on St. Croix. And as a human being, you have issues, you have things that come up. As a business owner, it's quite difficult doing that, and being a senator may be a big challenge. Finding people to work could be a big challenge. Who knows? So I don't believe it's going to affect him as people looking at being sued or having that issue in the campaign itself. I don't believe so.
Good points. Mr. Lynch, let me take it to you. The fact is that basically, yes, he's a business owner. He's a senator. Well, the Crucians look at this as, impacting him because, well, you can't run your business. Can you run a senatorial office? What are your thoughts on what are you hearing in the streets?
I can't speak for the Crucians, but I could definitely speak for myself. And, before I look at you as a senator, I look at you as a person. And you have to have the accountability and the responsibility as an individual to make sure that you put your best foot forward and really cement yourself as a responsible person. That's first and foremost. If we look at the facts regarding the $26,000 in owed back rent, you're speaking about at least $9,200 in the electric bill alone. So when you give content to as to why you have such an inflated cost, it speaks to a level of negligence. So therein lies a question. If you could run your business, the whole background of a senator is about economics and business. How is your efficacy aligning with that as well too? So it mightn't hurt your voting, but definitely individuals will think about it. How does it align with you going forward as a candidate representing the people of St. Croix? So it's definitely an interesting topic in terms of what he's doing as an individual and what he's doing as a senator as well.
Ms. Simon, timing is everything, and you're in the news business. Do you think that this, because $26,000, that's a lot of money racked up over a period of time, and it came out just recently. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, let's talk about timing, because according to the details of the complaint that was filed in court, these invoices have been racking up for at least a year. Why did the landlord decide to let the arrearages run for a year before sending in that final demand letter on August 12th? So the timing is very interesting. This is obviously not helpful to the campaign. It remains to be seen whether it's going to hurt Senator Carrion or not. I want to just make sure that we all are aware that the consortium did reach out to Mr. Carrion when we caught wind of this lawsuit. He said to us, and I'm going to quote here, another party was entrusted with daily operations and management. Because the matter is now before the courts, Mr. Carrion says that he has been advised by his attorneys to make no further comment at this time. So I think that what Mr. Lynch was saying was very correct, that it comes down to judgment. It comes down to your ability to handle yourself and handle your business. And it will be very interesting to see how this lawsuit plays out over the next couple of months and how that impinges on Senator Carrion's re-election prospects.
Very good. So, Mr. Turnbull, you are a small business owner yourself.
Yep.
And, you wear many hats in a small business. Could you have let the monies run the bill run this way?
Well, I can't speak to whatever his specifics were. I don't know if the question Ms. Simon questioned as to the timing. You don't know if the landlord was giving him the opportunity to make it right, to make it whole. Sometimes you get caught up and you have to face the fact of what you can or can't do. So, the judgment on Senator Carrion's part is just that. But as I feel as it plays out towards his electability, I don't see it affecting it.
Well, time will tell. You both believe, you and Ms. Simon believe that memories are short. Let's see what happens and how he's affected or not affected. And if the people feel that he's representing them well, he's speaking up for them, maybe that will be to his credit. So we'll move on to another topic, which is the delegate to Congress recently had a town hall meeting, and she excluded a particular person. So is it fair to deny entry into a town hall meeting?
Well, as the individual holding that, you have the right to decide who's in and out. I know the individual, very boisterous, speaks.
The person who wanted to get in.
Who wanted to get in, yeah, definitely. I actually met her in Tortola and we had some conversation. But, I think it's a matter of judgment. If it was me, I would let you in. If you behave untoward or in a manner that was disruptive, then I'll have you removed. But I personally would not have had you, blocked from coming in, blocked from access, because it was a public meeting. Mm-hmm. But I do recognize that you, the one holding that meeting, has every right to refuse who you want to enter. It may have had some type of history I'm not aware of between the individual and the delegate herself, or threats, as I was told, as it was stated in some of the different things there. So that may have been the onus as to why. So I can't speak to that specifically. I know if it was me, I'll let you in. If you behave in an untoward way, then I'll escort you out.
Yeah, so Mr. Lynch, I understand that the person that we're speaking about, her name is Karen Dickerson, and that she has had a history of Dickinson, and she has had a history of protests and perhaps some disruptions. So what are your thoughts about the delegate doing a preemptive move in prohibiting this person from coming into the town hall?
You know, it's definitely a difference between fear and what's legal. She was within her legal right to deny entry. You know, as the official presiding over the meeting, you have the choice to make such a decision. You know, you look at past experiences with Ms. Dickerson, you know, she has been very, very vocal in terms of what she has seen wrong in the territory and have voiced her concerns to many different forums. It's something different between your First Amendment right. Yes, you have the ability to speak, but you can't speak in every forum at any time. So once again, it is within the delegates' right to block entry from Ms. Dickerson.
She was prohibited from coming in, and it was preemptive. So she's saying, well, the delegate didn't know whether I was going to open my mouth or say anything. And as you're saying, Mr. Lynch, the delegate had the right to not let her come in, but Ms. Dickinson is saying she hadn't even spoken.
Which is true. There are different cuts to the story. You know, she didn't voice her opinion. She didn't say anything as yet. But once again, you know, we're judged, especially in the territory here, of history. Our memory is not that short in terms of history and what we do and what someone perceives you as. So even if your intent was to come and listen, you know, you're holding a meeting and you want to limit the disruption, you want to limit something that may possibly happen. You know, you don't want anything to be deterred. You don't want something to be said that's contrary to the perspective that you're having or the perception that you're having as well too. You know, so like I said, between the legality of being fair and legal of what the delegate did, it's a difference. Yes, we might say it wasn't fair, but within her right, it was legal. So she acted within her legal constraints and denied entry to Ms. Dickinson.
Okay, Mr. Lynch, I take your point. Ms. Simon, there was police present. There was security because the police was there. So there was not an imminent danger. But as I'm understanding from these gentlemen, you know, they believe that the preemptive action was warranted. What are your thoughts?
My concern is about the presence or absence of an expressed threat. We have, we all know that we are in a heightened political atmosphere around the world. Political violence is a reality. And so if there was indeed some sort of threat or previous threat that was made, then I would understand why Delegate Plaskett felt that it was, you know, out of an abundance of caution, it would be better to exclude Ms. Dickerson from the public town hall hearing. However, if this was not, you know, a serious threat or a credible threat or rising to the level of an issue where Delegate Plaskett was concerned about her safety, I have an issue with preemptively excluding a member of the public from a public event because the Congresswoman is a representative for the entirety of the Virgin Islands population. People who support her, people who do not support her, people who use their First Amendment rights to criticize her vocally, brutally, you know, viciously. She's still their representative. And I believe that preemptively excluding somebody from an occasion where their representative is speaking to the public, it's not good. It's not nice. It is not healthy, I think, for democracy. If you expect that somebody is going to make a disruption, do you exclude them, or do you allow them to make their disruption and then, given, you know, the behavior, escort them out with the police that were present? So yes. I'm not a huge fan of what transpired, with the caveat that if Ms. Plaskett was you know, feeling threatened, then, you know, there's nothing you could do about that. She has to maintain her safety.
Agree. And, you know, as has been stated previously, we don't know if there were actual threats. So we're just onlookers. I know that also Ms. Dickinson also is supporting Ida Smith, who is Plaskett's challenger. So could that have played a role in all of this as well? Because again, we don't know if there were threats, but could this be an issue as well?
I think it was more reputation than anything else. And like Dennis said, history. Many have seen some of the things that Ms. Dickinson has done. Many have seen firsthand, many have heard. And I think, again, I'm not certain of to what may have been said directly about to the candidate, what she may have seen, the delegate, what she may have seen. But, you know, again, reputation precedes you at sometimes, and sometimes individuals wish to take the safer route rather than give the opportunity for something to go awry.
And since we're talking about Ida Smith, we talked earlier about the fact that she's back on the ballot as per the Attorney General nominee, Gordon Rhea. And so now Ms. Smith decided, well, she didn't decide, she's saying that she's been hurt by this. Do you think, Ms. Simon, that this is going to hurt her or help her? Do you think, Ms. Simon, that people are going to say, well, she was treated unfairly and I'm going to vote for her because of this? So what are your thoughts?
Well, if you would allow me to remove my journalist hat for just a quick second and put on my public relations hat, I think that, messaging is everything. Ms. Smith now has a platform across the territory. Her name has been in news reports for the last few weeks as we discuss her disqualification and then the reversal of that disqualification. She has a real opportunity to use the platform and the attention that she has now and really make a case as to why she should be elected. Whether she can do that or not depends on her abilities and the abilities of her team. However, I always say that incumbency is a huge advantage. So whether she would be able to overcome Delegate Plaskett's incumbent advantage, again, remains to be seen. I wish we had some good polling firms in the territory that would give us a little more insight as to what the electorate is thinking as we come up to the election.
Well, thank you for that. Mr. Lynch, with all of this happening, and Ms. Simon made a great point about PR and messaging, now Ms. Smith can say, oh, I've been hurt. Do you think this has helped her, even though she has a few weeks to go, a couple months really to go toward the election?
I think everybody across the world loves an underdog story. Your sentiment goes out. When you could pull on an emotional heartstring, it goes a long way with human beings. And she has a very interesting story. You know, you could shape and turn that in many different directions. Like Ms. Simon eloquently pointed, it's just all about marketing and how you craft your message. 9 weeks is a lot of time to craft a message that will be succinct and could resonate with the territory. You know, so it's not like you have a day or two. You have time to sit there and really calculate your efforts and speak to the issues that the Virgin Islands is facing. So it's not only speaks to the amount of time and the length of time you have, but being able to reconnect with the community, being able to propose new ideas for long-standing issues. And that itself will speak volumes in terms of how she's received to the territory. Because right now, we have the feeling of hopelessness. You see a lot of things that's going on right now in the territory. How much disarray has. If she could come up with a plan to address even a fraction of those concerns, you will be very surprised at the voter turnout that she could receive.
Voter turnout. So we go back to what we were talking about earlier. There was low voter turnout because you said, well, there was no senators on the ballot here in St. Thomas. But guess what? All this confusion at the Board of Elections, wouldn't people want to be a part of fixing things? Because at this point, you have contention between the actual supervisor and the board really sets policy, correct? And so the supervisor is saying, oh, no, my job is to make sure that the rules are followed. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's an interesting situation. Listening to Ms. Simon and Mr. Lynch, it's kind of, for me, a combination thereof. Ida Smith, who many may not have known who she was, what she was about, anything about her, is now she just got a platform because people know about her for the last couple of weeks of this thing been going on. But now it's for her to bring some substance behind it. Because you have the platform, people may pay attention to you now who may not have before. But if you have the platform and there's no substance behind it, so as Mr. Lynch said, let's see what you're going to say now that you have people paying attention. The whole board of election situation with Ms. Fox and going back and forth again shows just some discontent based on what the rules are. And like Ms. Smith said, it's not based on any rules of the Virgin Islands, but rules, in her estimation, of federal rules, basically. So it's going to be interesting. I don't think it's going to bring anybody else out, but I will wait to see what she does now that she has the platform. And like Jonica said, we're going to see what she does now that she has it. What substance can she bring to it that she has the platform, and how she's going to market herself.
Janica, but I'll call her Miss Simon. You guys seem to know each other. Miss Simon, Mr. Turnbull brings a good point about, okay, so now we didn't know who she was. Most people didn't know who she was. Now she's a household name. And now what? As someone from the press, you do publications. What else are you looking to hear from Ms. Smith?
Yeah, I'm looking to hear from both candidates, Ms. Smith, Delegate Plaskett, because this is a very tricky role. These individuals have to go and interface in the House of Representatives, an area or a place, a platform where the territories don't have much power, because of the relationship that the territories have with the federal government. And so it is really a matter of finding ways to navigate, finding ways to, get caucuses with you, finding ways to insert territorial issues into national issues. So I would be looking for Ms. Smith to talk about things like the rum cover over rate. Our congressional delegate has been waiting for a long time to get a tax bill that she can attach the language to get that raised back up permanently to the higher level. How is Ms. Smith going to navigate the halls of Congress? Who is she going to be caucusing with? Who is she planning to get on her side? How is she going to, weave her way through that thicket, if you will, to get to bring home the bacon for the Virgin Islands?
I think you all made excellent points. You had something to add?
Yes, but interestingly enough, Ms. Simon, you missed one person. There are actually 3 individuals seeking that seat for delegate to Congress. So that shows a little bit of who's out there and what's going on and what they have gotten to the public's attention.
Good point. Thank you so much. And I want to thank each and every one of you for your participation today. You made very good points. That's all the show we have for you today. Be sure to tune in next Sunday at 1 p.m. for an all new episode of It Comes with the Territory. In the meantime, for your news updates, tune in to WTJX Newsfeed on weekdays at 5 p.m. on 93.1 FM or by downloading the WTJX app. I'm Janette Millin Young. For all of us here at WTJX Channel 12, take care.